big thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this week's video.
Morning everybody, fantastic to see you all again. So I'm back in my studio. I'm going to be talking all about composition and balance in photos and how to get good photos. It's a simple thing that I use on every single photo that I take, and I didn't used to do that. When I was a beginner, I didn't know about this. I just thought what looks good and then took the photo. So hopefully this will help you out. It's certainly useful to know when you're trying to compose images. So I want to talk about balance, and I want to talk about how you can use balance, whether it's in balance or out of balance a photo, to make your photos look really good. And it's really helpful when you're using a wide angle lens, particularly because where you've got a lot of things and you start to struggle. So at its very basics, balance is all about symmetry, really, whether it's symmetrical or asymmetrical. So if we start with an image like this is a sort of image that when you start out in photography, you tend to take quite a lot, reflections of trees, anything that's symmetrical, because your eye and brain loves that. It seems really pleasing. Anything that's symmetrical in nature looks really good. So a shot like this that I took in East Greenland looks really good. It's got obviously a very symmetrical nature, both that way and that way. Again, this one in East Greenland of this tabular iceberg looks good because it's very symmetrical. Also on this particular one, because white draws your eye into the image and it's dark all the way around, you're drawn into this image and it creates a real sense of mood because you're sort of drawn right into this tabular iceberg. But it's the symmetry which makes this simple, and the simplicity makes it quite a strong image. But sometimes you don't have such simple images like this one here, and then it's really useful to understand balance, I think. So I'm just going to go on its very basics, and we're just going to go and mark up this image here. And what I can do is I can draw on some lines. So first of all, if I draw a line right down the center, basically what you've got to do is you've got to assign visual weight to something. And this sounds something that sounds quite scientific, but once you get used to it, it's really easy. So for instance, this is quite a big structure. It's got quite a big visual weight. We've got the bird there. It's got a big visual weight because it's a bird. So it's not as big as that sea stack there, but it's still got a certain visual weight. And we can draw a line to those things. And then this here has got a big visual weight. And then on the other side, we've got me. Huge visual weight. It's a human in nature. It really stands out. So that's got a line to it there. Then we've got this here, and then we've got this area here, which has got some visual weight as well. So there's certain things pulling you this way, certain things pulling you that way, and overall this image works because they balance a little bit. Those visual weights balance. Now you don't always have to have those balance in, but it's good to have those balance in. If you don't, then it'll create an image that's more in tension, a more fluid image. So that's what I try and do. It's as simple as that. And I want to go through some examples of different types of ways of doing that, really, because it's not just all about objects like this. Sometimes it's about light and colors and other things. Okay, let's go back to these images. So this was an image that I took a long time ago, sun tree. I've showed this so many times in my videos. But this is a good example of asymmetric balance. So we've got the tree here and the sun, which has got huge visual weight, and you would think that it's actually out of balance. But what you can sometimes do with images is that you can create a big sort of negative space on the other side of the image, and that allows the image to breathe a little bit, and that sort of helps it feel more balanced and easier to look at, is another way of saying it. So sometimes what I do is I balance things with a really heavy visual weight, like this tree and the sun on the left-hand side, with big open areas on the right-hand side. And that's really, really helpful when it comes to images. You can do it quite a lot. You might see something, it works quite well with a person looking out into the distance. Anything that you've got a big open area, you can use that to create an element of space, and that helps to balance the image a little bit. Again, this is a good example of an asymmetric image. This was from the volcano. More on that in 2 or 3 weeks, actually. I'm going to show you this is one of my favorite images ever, and I'm going to show you this printed for my wall and how I go about doing that. But this image I think works really well, but it's not obvious because it doesn't really look balanced. But I think there's flow that's important in balance as well. So obviously this has got a very high visual weight here. It's this almost burnt out volcano. But what helps this image is this here, this volcano flow, because you immediately flow back through that into the here, and then this takes you up here and then flows you around the image. And because of that, and we've got this open area here, I feel like this works quite well as an asymmetrically balanced image. Again, this is another really good example of that. Sometimes you've got to check out whether an image works one way or the other. Now, obviously, it's not a good idea to flip an image, but sometimes I do that, especially if it's like an iceberg or something like that, where it's not really important to know which way it is. With this, probably I wouldn't do it, but I think this image works a lot better this way. So if I just go and edit it, and I just go to the crop tool here and we flip it that way, I don't think it looks as good that way, because I think you read left to right. So in this particular case, what happens is that you come into the image here, this is the strong part of it, and then that takes you out of the image. Whereas we go back to the original one, then I think what happens is you come in from this side, you hit the volcano that way, and it takes you back round the image. So that works really, really well. So sometimes you've got to think with the asymmetric balance, is it going to work one way or the other? And sometimes you can flip the image. That makes a really big difference sometimes. This is an interesting image I wanted to show you because I think it's again asymmetrically balanced. There's some negative space on this area, and I was unsure when I was taking this image whether this needed to point this way, but I think it's fine, because if this pointed this way, so if we had this pointing this way like this, then I feel like all the image would be here, and then this part, if that wasn't there, would feel a bit lost, I think. But by having the sign, and I have to admit, when I took this, I was a little bit worried about it, but I thought it looks right. But by having the sign there, it sort of balances this area of negative space with this. And also, it sort of gives you the idea that somebody's walking in this direction through and out of the image. It's unusual, this. It's not a particularly usually balanced image, but I think it works. Okay, this is a more simple example. So this was a shot, I haven't edited this or anything, in the Peak District of, I was trying to get something with this rock, and then the tor in the distance, this little mountain here with the heather. But obviously this isn't balanced, because what we've got here is, we've got this massive rock here, and you know, if you draw a line down here, this is pulling all your attention. There's really nothing on this side that's pulling your attention, so it doesn't really work as an image. So I was trying to figure out a way of doing that, because if the light started to come, especially sunset comes from this direction, then I think it would have been a really nice image to take. So I tried a landscape version of it, and I've edited this image so it's slightly different. I'm still not pleased with it because it needs more light, but you can see that what I've done now is I've balanced it out. So we've now got this here and this. Now, I don't think it's completely balanced, but I think if the light was hitting and lighting up this here, then we'd have two elements on the right hand side that were, you know, really strong and balancing out this really heavy rock here. And also you could probably darken this rock down a little bit and dodge and burn, which would help the balance of the image. So yeah, just by changing the orientation from portrait to landscape really helped. The other thing to think about is, this is a good example here. So this is a shot in East Greenland, and I was taking lots of shots, and this is one that didn't work. So obviously I've got this mountain here, but then the ice is really close to the edge there. So this is, when something's really close to the edge, it creates a really strong visual tension. So the visual weight of this area is big. It's a really big visual weight. So it's pulling the eye in this direction a lot. So we've got that pulling the eye in that direction, that pulling that direction, and again, nothing on this side of the image that's really working. So, but just by waiting a little bit, then I got this image, which works a lot better because I've got the thing straight in the center. And then what I was waiting for, and I never got it, but I wanted to try and find an S-curve or some diagonals that took me through to this, because diagonals are good because they're a good way of connecting you through an image. But I couldn't, I still don't think it's perfectly balanced that, because this is a little bit to the left. It would have been good to start more to the right. But yeah, it gives you an idea of what the sort of things that I'm looking for. Another good example of balance, and this is so interesting, this image, because I was really struggling with this. This was, again, I was with Jack Lodge on the Roaches in the Peak District, and I just didn't feel like this image worked very well. So I've got this really nice path going down here, but this area here I think is just lost. So you know, there's the lake here that's got a little bit of visual weight. This doesn't have anything really, so everything's here and it's just drawing your eye in this direction. However, I just moved up and back a bit, and what I found was I got this rock here, and this rock obviously has a really high visual weight. So if I go and look at this, then we have got this line here, which is almost like an S-curve. We're coming in here, out there, and then we have got this here. So we've got some line that's taking you out of the image, but this rock keeps drawing your eye back into the image here. And because it's drawing you across this diagonal, that works really, really well and helps to balance the image out. And it's almost like a seesaw, really. You just want to make sure that you've not got too much pulling you one way or the other. And also remember, when you're doing that, your eye usually reads left to right. Make sure you stay to the end, by the way, because I'm going to tell you a really useful tip right at the end for looking at these and to see whether they are balanced or not. This works really well. This is one of my favourite images, Penguin Ice Boat. And what I wanted to do with this one is show you what I often do in images. So here I've got an element here and I've got an element here, and between those two elements you have a diagonal. And it's really good to do that, to have two main elements in your image and create a diagonal that goes across the middle of the image. It works really well. It's a really good way of creating a very engaging, really nice and well balanced image. So I thought I'd show you that, and I also want to show you this one as well, which is again another very well balanced image, apart from I feel like that we need more space on this side, on the image here. So here needs a bit more space because it's almost like it's drawing your eye out a little bit of the image in that direction. So yeah, just having a little bit more space there would really help. So I want to show you a tip as well for luminosity and how you can do that. This is almost black and white, but if you do convert an image to black and white, and you can easily do that in lots of different tools, we'll just do this, then obviously bright and dark areas and contrast between bright and dark areas tend to draw your eye. So in this particular case, and I think this image does work, then I have got this area here that's quite bright and it's drawing your eye in that direction. And then I've got this dark area and this bright area quite close together. And because they're quite close together, I add a bit of contrast and they're drawing your eye in that direction. And so I think this works because it's quite well balanced. And you can do that just by, going to the black and white image and having a look for luminosity. This is a good example of where it's not really obvious what's not quite right with this image. It seems quite balanced, but there's something that I feel that's just offsetting to one direction on this image. I just want to explain how you can see that. So if I just go and edit that and click black and white, then you start to get away from the colours, the blues and the oranges, and I can see here that there is an area there, an area there, an area there, and then all this area here, which is very bright. And I think that these are quite distracting because they're not, you don't really know what they are at first, so they've got really huge visual weight pulling in that direction, and then you've got a bit of tension really. It doesn't balance out, it's just more tension because you don't know what they are, and then this is dragging you out of the image. Because I think if you've got something that's got nice visual weight, it's got to have a purpose in the image, and these don't have a purpose. So if we go back and we just discard those changes, I think the problem with this image is these two bright areas here. Now, I knew that straight away because I've looked at lots of images, but sometimes you struggle with things like that. And again, this bright image I think it isn't right. We've got a shadow here as well. But by going to black and white, you can often help you out. And finally, with this image, I just want to show you a tip, a really simple tip. So what I recommend is, if you've got an image like this, just turn it upside down. And if you turn it upside down, then you start to see the problems. So here, when I see this upside down, then I think, okay, well, this bottom area is quite dark. This being quite close to the edge, and this area here seems a bit odd. I don't really understand that. And then obviously this is quite a big rock and it's not really balanced by those rocks. But turning it upside down can really help to try and understand whether an image is right or wrong and whether it's balanced. So if you're struggling, if you think it's not quite right, try and work out a crop, then rotate it 180 degrees in Lightroom, crop it to what looks right, and then I guarantee it'll look better. This image itself works much better when I did it as a landscape because we've got, again, more balance here. Ideally, I'd have had a rock in this position here, but it worked a lot better when it was in landscape. And that's it. And when you've got your photos, what I recommend is that you go and put them on a website. And if you haven't got a website or you want to update your website, then I can recommend Squarespace. Squarespace is a fantastic platform for building your own website. I use Squarespace, I've used it for years now. You can build your own shop on it, you can set up a gallery on it, it's really easy to drag and drop things, you don't really need any technical skills, and there's 24/7 support. So if you're looking for a website, you want to get 10% off, there's a link here and in the description, and you can use offer code Nigel. And before I go, I just want to tell you about an exhibition I'm having called The Spirit of Luskentyre. It's on the 15th, 16th and 17th of September, and everyone's welcome. It's really local to me, so it's probably only for people that live in the UK, realistically. And I'm going to be having, I've got 20 framed images. This is one of them. It looks absolutely, you can just see it with the light there, yeah, it looks absolutely spectacular. They're obviously going to be for sale at the exhibition. I'm also having the exhibition with a friend of mine, Ali Pottinger, who is a watercolour artist. She was up for a week when I was there in Luskentyre. I think the two things together are going to look really amazing. I'm going to be there for all 3 days. So if you want to come and have a chat with me, or you want to come and have a look at the images or whatever, or coffee, then it'd be great to see you. That's it. Thanks ever so much for watching, and until, I'm not sure when, it might not be next Sunday, I might do it at a different day, but until sometime, bye.